My friends, let me begin today with a little observation. Most people think they have a discipline problem. They say, Jim, if only I were more disciplined, if only I could stay consistent, if only I could push myself harder. But let me tell you something that changed my life many years ago. The problem isn't discipline. The real problem is direction. Because discipline without direction is exhausting, and direction without philosophy has no power. You see, your life doesn't change because you hustle harder. Your life changes because you think better. You don't build consistency by force, you build it by belief. And belief comes from philosophy. The way you see your life, the way you interpret your circumstances, the way you decide what matters and what doesn't. So today, we're not going to talk about pushing yourself. We're going to talk about guiding yourself. We're going to talk about the invisible foundation that makes discipline possible, effortless, and in many cases, automatic. Someone once told me success begins with action, and I told them, no, success begins with thinking, because thinking determines action, and action determines results. So stay with me as we dive deep into this. If you've struggled with consistency, stopped and started, made promises to yourself and broke them, don't worry. You weren't weak. You were simply building your life on the wrong foundation. Today we lay the right one. Today we start at the root. Today we talk about the force that shapes every attitude, every habit, every decision you make. We talk about your philosophy. And once your philosophy changes, everything else begins to change with it. My friends, every life, every one of them is built on something you can't see. An invisible force that quietly shapes every decision you make, every habit you keep, and every result you produce. And that force is your personal philosophy. Now, most people never stop long enough to examine their philosophy. They examine their schedule, their diet, their goals, their motivation, but not the thing that drives all of it. And here's the truth I learned early. You don't behave according to your goals. You behave according to your philosophy. Your habits don't come from your desires. They come from your beliefs. If your philosophy says life is hard and nothing ever works out, then you'll approach every opportunity with hesitation. If your philosophy says success is for other people, then consistency will always feel like climbing a mountain in heavy boots. But if your philosophy says I am responsible, I am capable, I am becoming better, then discipline becomes natural, not forced, because you're no longer working against your beliefs. You're working with them. See, philosophy is like the blueprint of a building. If the blueprint is weak, it doesn't matter how hard the workers try, the building won't stand. But if the blueprint is strong, the construction becomes simple. It has direction, it has structure, it has clarity. And so do you. The real question isn't how do I become disciplined? The real question is what do I believe about myself, about my future, about my responsibilities? Because your philosophy is the driver. It's the captain of the ship. And if the captain doesn't know the destination, no amount of rowing will get you anywhere. So today, let's bring that invisible force into the light. Let's make sure your philosophy is worthy of the life you want to build. Because once your philosophy changes, your habits follow. Your consistency follows. And your results follow every single time. Now let's go a little deeper, my friends. Because once you understand philosophy, you begin to understand the entire chain of success. And it is a chain, one link connected to the next, each one influencing everything that follows. Jim Rohn used to say, everything matters. And he was right, because everything you do begins long before you do it. It begins in the mind. First comes your philosophy, what you believe about life, people, work, time, success, yourself. From that philosophy grows your attitude. Attitude is the emotional expression of your thinking. If your philosophy is strong and optimistic, your attitude will be hopeful and proactive. But if your philosophy is weak or confused, your attitude becomes cautious, doubtful, even negative. And here's the turning point. Your attitude shapes your actions. Because we don't act based on what's true. We act based on what we believe is true. If your attitude says, this isn't worth it, you won't do the work. If your attitude says, I can grow, I can learn, I can change, then even hard work becomes doable. And from those actions come your results. Success is never an accident. It is the harvest of many small acts performed because of a philosophy strong enough to guide them. And those results, they become your lifestyle. Your income, your confidence, your health, your relationships, your future. But remember this, the chain doesn't start with lifestyle. It doesn't start with action. It doesn't even start with attitude. It starts with philosophy, because philosophy is the seed. Attitude is the sprout, action is the plant, results are the fruit, and lifestyle is the orchard. That's why people fail. They try to fix the fruit without fixing the seed. They try to change actions without changing beliefs. They try to be consistent without understanding why. So today, we fix the beginning of the chain. We strengthen the first link. We build the philosophy that creates the attitude, that drives the action, that produces the results. And once you master that, my friends, life starts working for you instead of against you. Now, my friends, once we understand that philosophy is the root of everything, the next question becomes, what kind of philosophy produces consistency? What kind of thinking leads to a life of discipline, achievement, progress, and purpose? And over the years, I discovered that you can build an incredibly powerful life on just 3 simple words. 3 words that guide your choices, shape your habits, and steady your direction. The first word is responsibility. If it is to be, it is up to me. Not the government, not your parents, not your boss, not your circumstances. You. The day you fully accept responsibility for your future is the day your future begins to grow. Responsibility turns chaos into order. It turns confusion into clarity. And it turns inconsistency into commitment. Because once you say, my life is my job, your behavior begins to match that belief. The second word is priorities. One of the great philosophies of Jim Rohn is this: don't let the minor things steal your major things. Most people are consistent with what doesn't matter and inconsistent with what does. Their day is full, but their life is empty. Priorities rescue you from that trap. When you decide what is important before the day begins, your consistency becomes protected. You stop living in reaction and start living by design. You stop being busy and start being purposeful. This is where consistency finds its rhythm. And the third word, maybe the most powerful, is standards. Your standards are the rules you set for yourself when no one is watching. Standards are what you demand from yourself, not sometimes, not when it's convenient, but always. You see, the highest form of discipline is not punishment. It's self-respect. When you raise your standards, you raise your behavior. And when you raise your behavior, you raise your future. Low standards create hesitation, inconsistency, and excuses. High standards create clarity, confidence, and momentum. The difference between the average life and the exceptional life is often just one thing: higher standards lived daily. So think about this, my friends. When you embrace responsibility, establish priorities, and elevate your standards, discipline becomes natural. Consistency becomes almost automatic. You no longer force yourself to act. You act because the person you've chosen to become demands it. These 3 words are the foundation of a powerful philosophy. Build your life on them, and you build a life of purpose, direction, and steady progress. My friends, once you understand the power of philosophy, the next step is to capture it, to put it in writing, to bring what's invisible into the visible. Jim Rohn used to say, don't trust your memory. Your memory is fickle. Put it on paper, because paper is honest. And he was right. A written philosophy becomes the compass of your life. It becomes the voice that speaks to you on the days when motivation is quiet. It becomes the reminder of who you decided to be long before the moment of weakness arrived. So let's talk about how to build it. First, define your purpose. Sit quietly and ask yourself, what do I want my life to stand for? What do I want people to remember when I leave the room? Purpose gives meaning to your days. Without purpose, consistency feels like labor. With purpose, consistency feels like progress. Write down a single sentence that defines your direction. It doesn't have to be perfect, only honest. Second, define your rules. Every successful life is governed by a personal constitution, a small set of rules that guide behavior. Rules like, I read every day. I show up even when I don't feel like it. I do not lie to myself. Write your rules as if you were setting standards for someone you deeply care about, because you should. Third, define your boundaries. This is where most people struggle. They know what they want, but they allow too much in that weakens their progress. So ask yourself, what will I no longer tolerate from myself? What habits, distractions, excuses must end? Your philosophy must protect you from your lesser self. Boundaries are not restrictions, they are instructions. They tell your life where it is allowed to go. And fourth, define your commitments. A commitment is a promise you make to your future. A promise you do not break. Not for tiredness, not for laziness, not for convenience. Write down the commitments that matter most. Small, simple, daily. Because small commitments honored consistently build enormous confidence. And confidence builds momentum. And momentum builds a lifestyle. Now, when you put these pieces together, purpose, rules, boundaries, commitments, you create something extraordinary. You create a written philosophy, a document that directs your decisions, a reminder that you are responsible for who you become. Most people drift through life responding to chaos, but the disciplined, the consistent, the leaders, they live from a written philosophy. And my friends, once you put your philosophy on paper, you move from wandering to walking, from reacting to choosing, from hoping to building. And that is where your new life begins. Now, my friends, a philosophy is powerful, but only if it moves from the page into your day. A lot of people write goals, dreams, intentions, but they never design the system that brings those ideas to life. Jim Rohn would remind us that good intentions are no substitute for a good plan. So let's talk about how you turn philosophy into consistency, how you turn belief into behavior. Because philosophy may be the foundation, but routine is the structure. And without structure, even the best intentions collapse. The first step is what I call morning mindset alignment. Before the world grabs your attention, you take a moment to claim your direction. Don't start your day with your phone. Don't start with notifications. Start with your philosophy. Read your purpose statement. Review your 3 words: responsibility, priorities, standards. Remind yourself who you decided to be. If you give the world your mind before you give it to yourself, you lose your direction before the day even begins. But if you anchor your mind early, you carry that clarity through everything you do. Second, establish your daily 3, the non-negotiables. These are the 3 simplest, clearest actions that move your life forward every single day. Jim Rohn taught that an extraordinary life is built on ordinary disciplines practiced consistently. So choose 3 that match your philosophy. 1 for your mind reading, learning, reflection. 1 for your skill, practice your craft, improve your value. 1 for your body, move, strengthen, energize. Not 10 things, not a complicated list. 3 non-negotiables, because consistency thrives on simplicity, and simplicity removes resistance. Third, you need the nightly review, what Jim called getting from the day. Most people end their day without learning from it. They rush into sleep with the same mistakes they woke up with, but the disciplined person pauses for 5 minutes, just 5, and asks, what worked today? What didn't? What did I learn? What will I adjust tomorrow? Reflection turns experience into wisdom. Without reflection, your days repeat. With reflection, your days evolve. And consistency is nothing more than evolution repeated daily. Fourth, create a weekly reset. Once a week, step back and look at your life as a whole. Are your actions aligned with your philosophy? Are your priorities guiding your schedule? Are your standards holding firm or slipping? The weekly reset is where you realign the drift. Everyone drifts, it's human. But the successful don't drift for long. They interrupt the drift with reflection, adjustment, and renewal. And that keeps consistency alive. Finally, understand this. Consistency is not about doing more. It's about doing what matters, the same things, with the same intention, guided by the same philosophy. When you have a clear philosophy, simple routines, daily alignment, and weekly resets, something wonderful happens. Discipline stops being a struggle, motivation stops being necessary, and consistency becomes your natural state of living because your life has structure, your days have intention, and your actions have meaning. My friends, once philosophy shapes your habits, and your habits shape your days, the future begins to shape itself. My friends, now that we've built the foundation, let's talk about the cracks, the dangers, the silent traps, the subtle attitudes that quietly destroy consistency. Because success isn't only about what you do, it's also about what you must guard against. Jim Rohn often taught that errors in judgment, repeated every day, lead to disaster. Not big mistakes, small ones, tiny ones. Little ways of thinking that seem harmless but slowly weaken the entire structure of your life. So let me give you a few warnings, a few signals that the philosophy guiding your life needs strengthening. The first danger is the someday philosophy. Someday I'll get serious. Someday I'll start the business. Someday I'll write the book. Someday I'll clean up my health. My friends, someday is the thief of consistency. Someday turns weeks into months and months into years until one day you look back and realize your potential was postponed into oblivion. A strong philosophy says, if it matters, I start today. The second danger is emotional leadership, leading your life with your feelings, letting your mood decide your actions. Jim Rohn said, don't let your emotions run your life, let your life run your emotions. You can't build consistency on the shifting sands of how you feel. Feelings are weather, philosophy is climate. Weather changes by the hour, climate endures. Build on what endures. The third danger is the pull of comfort. Comfort is beautiful, but it is also seductive. Comfort convinces you that progress can wait, that growth is optional, that tomorrow has plenty of time. But comfort has never built a champion, never built a leader, never built a legacy. If your philosophy values comfort over challenge, your consistency will always lose the fight. The fourth danger is the excuse vocabulary. You can tell the quality of someone's philosophy by their vocabulary. I'm tired. I'll do it later. It's too hard. These phrases seem small, but every time you repeat them, you reinforce a weaker version of yourself. Consistency is not just about action, it's about the language you speak to yourself. The fifth danger, and perhaps the most powerful, is associating downward. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And if those 5 people believe in excuses, avoid responsibility, and live without direction, their philosophy becomes your philosophy. It rubs off slowly, silently, until you begin to think as they think, act as they act, and accept what they accept. If you want a strong life, you must guard your associations. Keep company with people who challenge you, inspire you, and expect more from themselves and therefore more from you. So here's the truth, my friends. Consistency doesn't disappear overnight. It erodes. It dissolves. It weakens piece by piece under the pressure of a weak philosophy. But once you recognize the dangers, once you fortify your thinking, once you replace someday with today, replace feelings with principles, replace excuses with responsibility, replace comfort with challenge, and replace low associations with high ones, then consistency becomes not something you fight for, but something you grow from. That is the power of a strong philosophy. It protects you from yourself. My friends, philosophy becomes powerful when you practice it. Not next year, not when life slows down, but now. You don't need 30 days or 6 months or a perfect season of life to start. All you need is 7 days, just 7, to feel the shift, to taste the strength, to experience the difference a clear philosophy can make. So let me give you what I call the Rohn 7-Day Philosophy Challenge. 7 simple steps. 7 small commitments. 1 powerful transformation. Day 1 is Purpose Day. Sit down with a blank sheet of paper and write your purpose. Not a paragraph, just 1 sentence. What do you want your life to stand for? What do you want your future to reflect? Put it in clear, honest words. A purpose stated is a future shaped. Day 2 is the day of elimination. Identify one excuse that has been stealing your consistency, just one, and eliminate it. Maybe it's I'm tired. Maybe it's I'll start tomorrow. Maybe it's I don't have time. Whatever it is, remove it from your vocabulary. A single excuse eliminated can create a lifetime of progress. Day 3 is Environment Day. Improve one thing in your environment that supports your consistency. Remove a distraction. Clean your workspace. Organize your tools. Your environment shapes your behavior more than motivation ever will. Make your environment your ally. Day 4 is Standards Day. Write down 3 standards you will live by. Small standards, achievable standards. I read 10 minutes a day. I move my body daily. I work 1 block on my goals. These aren't chores, they are identity statements. Standards raise your character, and your character raises your life. Day 5 is Value Day. Jim Rohn said, "You don't get paid by the hour, you get paid for the value you bring to the hour." So choose one action that increases your value. Learn a skill, study a mentor, practice your craft. Send a message of service. Do something that makes you more valuable today than you were yesterday. Day 6 is the 10-10-10 day. 10 pages of reading, 10 minutes of skill practice, 10 minutes of reflection, 30 minutes of investment, small, simple, doable, and yet these 30 minutes practiced daily can transform a life. If you can do it one day, you can do it every day. Day 7 is Identity Day. Write your new identity narrative. Who are you becoming? What does the consistent version of you look like, sound like, act like? A powerful identity creates powerful behavior. And powerful behavior creates powerful results. Your future follows your identity. Now, my friends, do not underestimate the impact of these 7 days. They are small steps, but small steps repeated are what reshape a life. These 7 days solidify your philosophy. They teach you to act with intention. They train your mind to lead your habits instead of letting your habits lead you. And once you complete the challenge, something subtle but unmistakable happens. You begin to trust yourself again. You begin to see that consistency isn't a mountain, it's a rhythm. A rhythm anyone can learn, even you, especially you. 7 days to begin, a lifetime to grow. That's the Rohn way. My friends, as we bring this lesson to a close, let me leave you with a thought that has guided me for decades. Your philosophy shapes your future more than any other single factor in your life. Not luck, not background, not circumstance, philosophy, because your philosophy determines your attitude determines your actions determine your results, and your results determine your lifestyle. It all begins with the way you think. So if you've been struggling with discipline, losing momentum, breaking your habits, or falling short of the consistency you desire, remember this. You don't fix the problem by trying harder. You fix it by thinking better. You fix it by choosing a stronger foundation. Don't chase discipline. Build the philosophy that makes discipline natural. Don't chase consistency. Become the person who lives consistently because their vision, their standards, and their identity demand it. A strong philosophy lifts you out of your old patterns. It gives you direction when you feel lost. It gives you courage when fear visits. And it gives you identity when life becomes uncertain. With the right philosophy, you don't have to force yourself into progress. Progress becomes the natural expression of who you are becoming. So let this be your invitation and your reminder. Don't wait for life to change before you change your thinking. Change your thinking and life will follow. Don't wait for opportunity to knock. Build the mind that attracts opportunity. Don't wait for motivation to return. Build the standards that carry you forward when motivation is asleep. My friends, your future is too important to be lived by accident. Craft it, shape it, build it. And it all begins with the words you choose to believe about yourself. So write your philosophy, live your philosophy, and let your philosophy build the life you were meant to live. Because once you lead yourself with clarity, discipline, and conviction, success has no choice. It will follow you every time.